So, next, we'll dive into the concept of AWS regions and availability zones, two elements of AWS's global infrastructure. So, first, let's look at the concept of AWS regions. So, first, it's important to note that each region is located in a specific geographic location. So, for example, it could be centered around an area like Northern Virginia or in a specific area like Singapore. Now each geographic location has a cluster of data centers that work together, so a region is much more than just a single data center, as you'll see in just a minute. Now AWS has currently launched 22 different regions. Now some of these are public, and some of these are not available to the public. But currently there are 22 regions globally. But there have also been 5 additional regions that have been announced, meaning AWS will launch those in the near future. So as we look at a global map, you can see that the spread of AWS regions is pretty great. We have, for example, some that exist in the United States and Canada, some in South America, some in Europe, several in Southeast Asia. There are a lot of different areas where AWS regions exist, and there are a few here that probably aren't even included that are getting ready to be added by AWS. Now these regions operate with smaller units called availability zones. So let's talk about these. Availability zones consist of one or more data centers. So here's where we get down to the data center level. Now multiple availability zones are included with each AWS region. That means that at minimum, each AWS region has 2 availability zones, and at minimum, each of those availability zones has at least one data center. So the smallest number of data centers that can support an AWS region would be 2, but some will include many, many more, as we'll see in a minute. Now these are located within the geographic area of the AWS region, so you're not going to have availability zones that are far, far away from their region area. In this case, that geographic area will house all of the availability zones. Now the availability zones themselves have redundant power, networking, and connectivity. AWS tries to make sure that there are no single points of failure when it comes to their global infrastructure. Now, currently, if we look globally, there are 69 availability zones that have been launched. Now let's take a look at just a small piece of the AWS global infrastructure. Let's look here within the United States. And so if we look at the regions within the United States, we currently have 6 different regions. 4 of these are public regions, and 2 of them are what we call GovCloud, which is the cloud that AWS has developed for the government. And in this case, we can see if we zoom into each of these that they each have multiple availability zones that make them up. For example, we can see that in Northern Virginia, which is us East 1, that there are 6 different availability zones that support that overall region, where many of them have maybe 3 or 4 supporting them. Now all of this concept around availability is something that we need to dive into a bit further. So the reason that availability zones exist is because of this concept. Now availability is the extent to which an application is fulfilling its intended business purpose. So if we have an application for our company that's mission critical, but it's down all the time, that would be a low availability application. But if we have a situation where we have an application that is mission critical, and it's up all the time, we could call that a highly available application. And that's done by making sure that no single point of failure will lessen the application's ability to be fully operational. So the concept of an availability zone is that if we deploy our applications and experiences across multiple availability zones within an AWS region, we minimize any single point of failure in taking our application down. Next, let's look at how we name both regions and availability zones. So here it is common for us to see a notation like this, us East 2A. Let's talk about what this means. So first of all, the first area within this name is the high-level area, for example, US for United States, and then a sub-area, so the eastern part of the United States. And then we'll have a given number because there could be multiple regions within that area. And then we have a letter designating the availability zone. So when we look at this, if we look at a small segment of this, here's how we get the region name. So the region name in this case would be US East 2, which is located in Ohio. But if we want the full availability zone name, we would have US East 2A. And if we had other availability zones, they would be 2B or 2C. Now if we look globally, here is a sampling of the AWS regions that we have globally and their region identifier. You can see here that US East 2 is in Ohio, just like we mentioned. We also can see some in other areas of the world. For example, the one in Stockholm, which is EU North 1. Thanks for watching our video. For more videos, please take 1 second and press the button below, like, subscribe, and bell icon.